War ended, but calamity had only just begun. The fall of the Moulan sacred bird shattered the battlefield, forcing sworn enemies into a fragile truce, yet beyond the blood-soaked plains. A far greater shadow was already stirring. As ancient alliances collapsed and reluctant pacts were forged, the soaring tribes watched in silence, waiting for the moment when all sides would weaken just enough to be devoured. Amid shifting borders and uneasy peace, Han Li returned from the front lines believing the worst had passed, only to discover that fate had struck far closer to home. While nations bargained for survival, a hidden curse crept through the shadows, freezing Nangong Wan between life and death and drawing the gaze of devil cultivators from distant empires. The battlefield had fallen silent, but the true struggle had only begun, one that would test not armies, but resolve loyalty and the price of power itself. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. The disappearance of the Moulan sacred bird quickly spread across both sides of the battlefield, triggering a dramatic reversal in morale. The spell warriors were struck with overwhelming shock, their spirits wavering, while the cultivators felt their fighting intent surge as though awakened from slumber. Amid the fierce clash, the shriveled old spell warrior and Tian Zhong witnessed this scene, their expressions instantly twisting with disbelief. There was no chance the sacred bird had vanished merely because its lantern oil had run dry. The only possible explanation was that a cultivator had extinguished the bright origin lantern. The two divine sages could never have imagined that the Moulan lineage's sacred treasure had once again fallen into Han Li's hands. From their perspective, all late nascent soul cultivators were fully occupied, while the remaining cultivators were firmly suppressed by the sacred bird. There should have been no opening whatsoever to breach Spell Warrior Lu's defenses. This grim reality struck them like a thunderbolt from a clear sky. By then, Han Li had already slipped back to the side of the weeping soul beast without a sound. At that point, the beast had nearly annihilated the refined corpses in their entirety. The few survivors were hastily withdrawn by the yin-sifting sect's cultivators, knowing full well that it was only a matter of time before even the last copper-armored corpses were wiped out. After devouring vast quantities of undead qi, the weeping soul beast had grown noticeably larger. Its pitch-black fur gleamed with an even deeper, more sinister radiance, its aura thick with ferocity, as if it had been thoroughly reforged by slaughter. Naturally, many black-robed cultivators and spell warriors wished to destroy the monstrous ape on sight. However, Long Han understood all too clearly that this bizarre giant beast was the key to dealing with the copper-armored corpses. Without hesitation, he dispatched men to guard it closely. Occasionally, enemies managed to slip through the defensive net, but Silvermoon would immediately mislead them with her illusion techniques, guiding them astray and sending them straight into oblivion. By the time Han Li returned, the weeping soul beast was finishing off the last remaining copper-armored corpses that had yet to be withdrawn. Han Li casually waved his sleeve. A flicker of black light flashed, and the massive beast rapidly shrank, transforming into a streak of dark radiance that shot into the spirit pouch at his waist. Seeing this, Silvermoon approached him from behind. Han Li had just withdrawn the weeping soul beast and was about to speak to Silvermoon when the sky within 1,000 li radius suddenly darkened. Black clouds roiled violently while countless green lightning bolts flashed and crackled within them. Han Li lifted his gaze, awe flickering in his eyes. Who was it? Who dared kill my Dao companion? I will rip out your soul and erase it from existence. The thunderous roar of the yin-sifting sect master echoed across heaven and earth. Han Li's heart jolted as he heard it, his expression darkening as he stared upward. The battle has yet to be decided, and you're already thinking of leaving. I would very much like to experience your demonic techniques. Almost immediately after, Devil Concord's calm voice followed. A moment later, a dense grey mist surged forth, blocking the advance of the black clouds. I have no interest in sparring with you. Step aside, or I will not hold back, the yin-sifting sect master replied coldly, his voice sharp enough to pierce the heavens. Devil Concord let out a soft chuckle. Not holding back? Surely you weren't holding back in our previous fight either. Go on, show me what you've got. The black-robed man fell silent for a moment before replying gloomily, Very well. Since you lack all sense of propriety, I won't waste any more time. I'll let you witness the might of my sect's supreme treasure, the ghost-sifting banner. By the end of his words, it almost sounded as though the yin-sifting sect master was smiling. The ghost-sifting banner. A trace of curiosity crept into Devil Concord's voice. This brief exchange sent shockwaves through the cultivators battling below. Even more astonishing was the revelation that the Tao companion of the yin-sifting sect master had already fallen into the hands of the Heavenly South cultivators. Han Li's expression remained calm. However, upon seeing Devil Concord block the yin-sifting sect master's path, he felt a deep sense of relief. He had no desire whatsoever to be hunted down yet again by a late nascent soul cultivator. Just as everyone believed the two great powers were about to descend and continue their clash on the battlefield below, another unexpected event occurred. A sharp whistle rang out from the direction of Moulan, followed by the arrival of more than 10 streaks of multicolored light. Before the streaks of light even reached the spell, warriors' a voice boomed toward them. Divine sages, stop the battle at once. Something has happened on the Moulan plains. The voice, amplified by a secret technique, swept across the entire battlefield. Immediately afterward, the streaks of light accelerated and plunged into the fray. The moment those words were spoken, much of the battlefield fell silent. Cultivators and spell warriors alike turned to look in astonishment. The shriveled old spell warrior's heart sank, and even his opponents ceased attacking, stunned by the sudden turn of events. Seizing the opportunity, the old spell warrior disengaged and flew toward the newly arrived group of spell warriors. Long Han hesitated briefly, then chose not to pursue. The shriveled old man had held the advantage in their previous exchange. There was nothing to gain from chasing him down now. It was somewhat strange that the spell warriors had allowed the cultivators to hear the message as well, but that was a matter to be addressed later. Since the Moulan Plains had been mentioned, it likely involved the soaring tribes. Han Li watched the shriveled old spell warrior with an odd expression, his gaze shifting to the streaks of light. As they dissipated, they revealed spell warriors clad in various garments. Led by a yellow-robed spell warrior at mid-nascent soul stage, a sight that surprised Han Li greatly. It was unusual for such a powerful spell warrior not to be stationed directly on the battlefield. Could he have been guarding something of great importance? Regardless, his presence lent considerable weight to his words. As for Devil Concord and the yin-sifting sect master, they had silently vanished back into the clouds. When the shriveled old spell warrior saw the yellow-robed spell warrior, disbelief flashed across his face. Before he could speak, the latter flew to his side and transmitted a message through voice transmission. The old man's expression darkened immediately. Shortly after, the yellow-robed spell warrior handed him a jade slip. The old man accepted it and scanned its contents. In the span of a few breaths, his complexion turned deathly pale. After exchanging a few brief words with the yellow-robed spell warrior, he turned around and flew gloomily toward Long Han. Stopping before him, he spoke in a calm yet heavy voice. "We will not continue this war. The battle ends here. Otherwise, a third party will rise and dominate us both." Long Han's expression flickered. Maintaining a neutral tone, he replied, "What do you mean by that? If you wish to halt this battle, you must give me a reason." Because of Han Li's unexpected displays of power, both the copper-armored corpses and the sacred bird had been neutralized, leaving the battlefield evenly matched. Unconsciously, Long Han suspected that the spell warriors were retreating out of fear. The old spell warrior asked coldly, "Did you send cultivators to infiltrate the storehouse of Soaring Heaven's city?" Long Han concealed his shock, keeping his expression steady. His eyes flickered briefly before he replied calmly, "So you've discovered it." "Discovered." The old man snorted, fury flashing across his face as he continued coldly, "If not for the interference of a third party, you would likely have succeeded." The third party? Long Han frowned deeply. Without elaborating aloud, the shriveled old man continued through voice transmission. When Long Han heard the explanation, he cried out in alarm, unable to maintain his composure. "What? So that's how it was. At this point, what do I gain from lying to you?" The old man replied bluntly. Long Han fell silent, brows knitted. After a brief moment, he suddenly raised his hand and released a talisman into the air. It split apart, transforming into several golden orbs of light that erupted with blinding brilliance. Instantly, the cultivators ceased attacking and hurriedly retreated back into their defensive formation, resembling a swarm of bees returning to their hive. Without the need for any orders, the spell warriors also withdrew. Even the blood-vial ghost and the stone giant were forced to halt their clash. In the blink of an eye, the battlefield was left completely empty. With the two sides separated, the extent of the casualties became clearly visible. Fortunately, losses among high-grade cultivators on both sides were relatively limited. The Spell Warrior camp fared slightly better. Though bewildered, they ultimately maintained their composure. On the cultivators' side, however, an uproar erupted. Several high-grade cultivators pressed Long Han for answers, but he could only respond with a bitter smile, drawing visible dissatisfaction from those around him. At that moment, the dark clouds and grey mist in the sky parted, revealing the silhouettes of Devil Concord and the yin-sifting sect master coldly facing one another. The sounds of battle in the heavens abruptly ceased. Soon after, Wei Wuya and Master Sunreach descended from above their arrival, greatly reassuring the cultivator camp. A short while later, the scholarly man surnamed Zhu and the dwarf also returned, provoking waves of cheers from the Moulan forces. Once the three great cultivators had regrouped, Long Han began speaking with them. Fearing widespread panic, they restricted the information to a select few. Only mid-nascent soul cultivators and several others were permitted to listen. With a few simple restrictions in place, they finally revealed the grim news brought back from Moulan. Given Han Li's astonishing performance in this battle, it was only natural that he was included among those allowed to hear it. Long Han erected a soundproofing barrier, then took out several small flags and planted them around the group. As spiritual light flickered, a layer of mist rose, sealing the area off completely. Watching this, Han Li could not help but sink into silent contemplation. There were not many cultivators present. Excluding the few eccentrics still trapped within the blood barriers, there were just over 20 people. Yet each of them represented a major faction that had taken part in the battle. Master Sunreach was the first to speak. Fellow Taoist, Long, what exactly has happened? Why are the Moulan suddenly unwilling to continue fighting? Wei Wuya frowned deeply and said in a doubtful tone, "This is strange. Things have already escalated to this point. Don't tell me the Moulan are harboring some foolish illusion of making peace." Long Han let out a bitter smile. "It is no illusion. I'm afraid we may not even have the luxury of choosing." Devil Concord's brows furrowed as he asked in surprise, "How could that be? Has another force interfered in this war?" Long Han's expression darkened. "That's right. The soaring tribes have made their move. It is said they have joined forces with several sects from the Jin Empire, launching a joint assault against the Moulan. The strongest Moulan tribe had been left behind as a rear guard to protect their homeland, but they were completely wiped out within a single month. The news was suppressed so thoroughly that the other tribes had no idea. It seems the soaring tribes intend to sweep away both sides and seize the entire heavenly South continent for themselves." The moment these words fell, the atmosphere grew heavy. The cultivators' expressions darkened and silence spread through the mist-shrouded space. Han Li frowned as well, sensing that the situation had taken a sharp turn for the worse. A tiger had stood before them, but wolves had been lurking in the shadows all along. Taoist Shattered Soul snorted coldly. "Is this information reliable? The distance between the soaring tribes and the heavenly South is immense. Could this not be mere bluffing?" "It's impossible," Long Han replied. Eccentric Heavenvenge and the others sent to infiltrate Soaring Heaven's city were defeated. According to the reports, the soaring tribes had the same intentions as us. They also dispatched cultivators to infiltrate the city and plunder the Moulan's storehouse. Heavenvenge happened to run into them, which led to this unexpected discovery. He paused, then continued helplessly. "As for the battle itself, everyone here understands that the Moulan's fully mobilized forces were slightly inferior to ours, but they fought with the resolve of those facing extinction. Had it not been for fellow Taoist Han's astonishing display of power, in dealing with both the copper-armored corpses and the Moulan's sacred bird, we would have suffered tremendous losses. Although the Heavenly South forces did their utmost, nearly half of each sect's disciples were left behind to guard their respective bases. If all of them had joined the war, we could have completely annihilated the Moulan spell warriors, but the price would have been devastating. With the soaring tribes looming, we would then have been utterly powerless to resist them." Many cultivators who had not previously known that Han Li was responsible for eliminating both the refined corpses and the azure sacred bird turned to look at him in shock. Han Li remained calm, pretending not to notice their gazes. Wei Wuya snorted gloomily and said coldly, "The Moulan tried to seize our territory. How can there be any talk of peace? Don't tell me we're truly going to give them half of our land." "That is absolutely impossible," Long Han replied firmly. "However, we can hand over 2 countries bordering the Moulan plains. This way the Moulan will bear the brunt of the soaring tribe's assault." Since the two sides are mortal enemies, there is no risk of betrayal. Of course, given the strength of the soaring tribes, we will still need to cooperate with the Moulan in resisting them. In the blink of an eye, two irreconcilable enemies were forced into becoming allies. Yet among these ancient battle-hardened eccentrics, no one voiced any objections. "That territory belongs to our Nine Nations Union," Wei Wuya said grimly. "Are we supposed to just hand it over?" "There's no other choice," Long Han explained. "Those lands are closest to the Moulan Plains. Naturally, we won't let your union shoulder the loss alone. After negotiations, appropriate compensation will be arranged." "Then let's discuss that later," Wei Wuya replied. Though clearly satisfied, he deliberately set the matter aside. "First, we'll see what the Moulan have to say." Han Li shifted his gaze toward Master Sunreach and Devil Concord. Both seemed deep in thought, yet it was clear they had already reached a decision. Only out of consideration for Wei Wuya did they refrain from agreeing outright. Han Li sighed inwardly. Every faction had already returned to calculating its own gains and losses. Long Han showed no surprise at Wei Wuya's response. Smiling faintly, he said, "I spoke too hastily earlier. Naturally, we'll discuss the finer details later. But before negotiations begin, we must immediately dispatch people to the Moulan Plains to verify whether the soaring tribe's invasion is real. If it is, the Moulan will have no choice but to cease hostilities with us, and both sides will need to make concessions. Otherwise, we'll both be swept away." This explanation eased the tension considerably. Even Wei Wuya's expression relaxed as the discussion continued. Throughout it all, Han Li remained silent. He had nothing to contribute and saw no need to waste words. As long as the matter did not involve the drifting cloud sect or himself, he felt little inclination to intervene. With Long Han present, he trusted that the Heavenly Tao Union would not suffer irreparable losses. Before long, the eccentrics finished discussing their plans and contingencies. The restrictions were dispelled, and the three great cultivators exchanged a few private words. Soon after, both the Moulan and Heavenly South sent representatives to negotiate the terms of a temporary ceasefire. All other matters would be addressed in the coming days. The Moulan sages wore uniformly grim expressions. With their retreat cut off and their homeland lost, the spell warriors were utterly at a loss. Their morale had sunk to rock bottom. Han Li and the other cultivators watched as the Moulan armies withdrew, slowly evacuating towards Sky First City. Thus, the border war involving hundreds of thousands of immortal cultivators finally came to an end. Several months later, within a seemingly endless expanse of barren mountains, a streak of azure light flashed through the skies like lightning. A faint silhouette could be seen within its scholarly robe's ordinary features. It was Han Li returning to the drifting cloud sect. Since the end of the border battle, shocking news of the soaring tribe's intention to exploit the weakened state of both sides had spread rapidly, forcing the Moulan and Heavenly South into a reluctant ceasefire. When eccentric Heaven Venge finally returned to Sky First City and confirmed the existence of a third force attacking the Moulan, the various factions dispatched several waves of cultivators to sweep through the Moulan Plains. They discovered that Moulan mortals had been driven to the very edge of the plains, while traces of the soaring tribes had already appeared in the tribe's former homeland. At that point, the Heavenly South could delay no longer and entered intense negotiations with the Moulan. Initially, the Moulan demanded 1/3 of the Heavenly South continent, threatening mutual destruction if their terms were rejected. For a time, the talks reached a deadlock. Soon after, however, Moulan mortals began to gather at the plains borders, and the soaring tribes openly hunted Moulan spell warriors. Under such pressure, the divine sages were forced to concede step by step. After all, the Moulan stood on the brink of extinction. Unlike the soaring tribes whom they had harbored hatred toward for tens of thousands of years, the Heavenly South cultivators were still open to negotiation. After several rounds of talks, an agreement was reached. 2 countries were granted to the Moulan, while their native mortals were relocated elsewhere. Meanwhile, each of the 3 major powers carved out portions of their own territories to compensate the 9 Nations Union, providing new lands for the displaced clans and sects. In return, the Moulan were required to resist the soaring tribes' invasion with all their strength, exactly as the Heavenly South had planned. Naturally, the Heavenly South powers would also provide assistance in the joint defense. Thus, while the Moulan secured land to survive on, they also inherited the same responsibility once borne by the 9 Nations Union, standing guard against the soaring tribes. And since they were limited to only 2 countries, the heavenly south did not fear them expanding into a future threat. After all, one's potential strength was ultimately constrained by available cultivation resources. Confined though they were, the Moulan avoided annihilation and no longer had to face the soaring tribes alone. With the support of the heavenly south factions, both sides found the agreement acceptable under the circumstances. Yet there was one matter that lingered in Han Li's mind. Because he had slain the Dao companion of the yin-sifting sect master, the sect master refused to let the matter rest, repeatedly issuing challenges for single combat. Each time Han Li received such a message, he extinguished it without hesitation or reply. It was utterly unreasonable for an early nascent soul cultivator to face a late nascent soul opponent. Han Li was no reckless hothead. He would never do something so foolish without cause. Once negotiations concluded, the yin-sifting sect master appeared to have reached an agreement with the Moulan divine sages and promptly departed with his subordinates. Rumor had it he returned to the Jin Empire, much to Han Li's relief. As for the ancient lantern Han Li had seized, it was none other than the Moulan's legacy treasure, the bright origin lantern. The Moulan divine sages insisted that it was an ancestral relic passed down through countless generations and should never fall into the hands of outsiders. They immediately demanded its return. Han Li had no intention of refusing or of letting the opportunity slip by. He demanded several chunks of auric essence in exchange. Unfortunately, the Moulan possessed very little and could only produce a piece no larger than a palm. Reluctantly, Han Li accepted additional rare materials as compensation and returned the ancient lantern. In truth, Han Li had never intended to keep it. Though its power was profound, it would inevitably bring endless trouble. If he retained it, the Moulan would one day conspire to reclaim it. Rather than invite future calamity, it was better to be rid of it now. On his journey back to the drifting cloud sect, Han Li subconsciously glanced at the storage pouch at his waist. When he had returned the ancient lantern in exchange for rare materials, the Moulan had, without any prior negotiation, returned the flower basket ancient treasure and the purple cloud lace as well. It was evident that the Moulan understood all too clearly that if they were to remain within the heavenly south for any length of time, they could not afford to offend its high-grade cultivators. Thus they returned the ancient treasures to Han Li, ensuring no lingering grudges remained between them. After all, Han Li had displayed terrifying power at such a young age, so much so that even the Moulan divine sages regarded him with deep apprehension. With the ancient treasures back in his possession, Han Li promptly returned the purple cloud lace to Silvermoon. Though she could only use it while in her demon fox form, she had wielded it to remarkable effect. Han Li was not the sort to forget favors, and so he bestowed the purple cloud lace upon her as a reward. When news spread that the heavenly south cultivators and the Moulan had joined forces, the soaring tribes grew hesitant. Although they stationed large numbers of cultivators along the borders of the Moulan plains, they refrained from launching an immediate assault. Instead, they merely observed the movements of both the heavenly south and the Moulan, choosing caution over haste. This restraint, however, only deepened the concerns of Master Sunreach and the other leading figures of the heavenly south. The enemy's deliberation signaled not hesitation, but rather a greater and more calculated intent to invade the heavenly south continent. Seeing that no major confrontation would occur in the near future, the various powers of the heavenly south reverted to their former arrangements, taking turns guarding the border. Each sect dispatched a small contingent of elite disciples to garrison the regions near the two countries granted to the Moulan. If the soaring tribes were to attack, the Moulan would bear the brunt of the assault, and these stationed disciples would be able to provide immediate reinforcement. As for the remaining cultivators, they were permitted to return to their respective sects. As an elder of the drifting cloud sect, Han Li still had several matters to settle with senior martial brother Lu. After confirming that the majority of the sect's disciples had survived the war, Han Li was free to return. Lulo, however, still had other affairs to attend to and would remain behind for several more days. Thus Han Li departed alone. Along the way, Han Li activated the wind-riding chariot, drastically shortening his travel time. Yet upon entering the state of Shi, he put the chariot away to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. The remaining 100 kilometers passed in the blink of an eye. When the Dream Cloud Mountains came into view, Han Li's lips curved into a faint smile as Nangong Wan's exquisite appearance surfaced in his mind. Not long after, Han Li found himself inside a secret chamber, glaring coldly at a silver-haired old man, senior marshal brother Cheng. Fury and murderous intent surged within him as he demanded, "What happened?" After returning to the drifting cloud sect, Han Li had not gone directly to his cave residence. Instead, he had been intercepted halfway and brought to this secret chamber, one saturated with chilling glacial qi. It was here that he witnessed a sight that shook him to the core. Nangong Wan had been transformed into the body of a 7-year-old child, sealed within a massive slab of ice. Her eyes were closed, her expression serene and unaware, as though she had fallen into a deep slumber. The sight filled Han Li with both rage and alarm. Senior Marshal Brother Cheng let out a bitter smile and sighed. If Junior Marshal Brother Han had returned even 2 weeks earlier, this might have been prevented. For now, her life is not in danger, but she has no choice but to use this method to delay the activation of the Soul Seal Curse. The Soul Seal Curse. Han Li's expression darkened. How did such a yin curse take hold? Wasn't it lost long ago in the heavenly south? Could it be? He trailed off, a realization flashing through his mind. Seeing that Han Li had recalled something, Senior Marshal Brother Cheng began recounting everything in detail. Half a month earlier, Nangong Wan had left her cave residence in the early morning to absorb mountain frost for her greater incarnation arts. She never expected to encounter a black-robed man during her excursion. The moment he saw her, the man launched a ferocious Devil Dao attack, smashing through several of her protective treasures. Startled, Nangong Wan cried for help and fled toward her cave residence. By the time Senior Marshal Brother Cheng and other disciples rushed to her aid, she had already fallen into the black-robed man's grasp. He merely pressed a finger against her forehead, then released her as though nothing had happened. In alarm, Senior Marshal Brother Cheng immediately ordered a joint attack. Yet upon seeing so many drifting cloud sect disciples, the black-robed man made no attempt to fight. Instead, he coldly smiled, left behind a jade slip, and vanished in a flash of lightning. Unable to pursue him, Senior Marshal Brother Cheng brought Nangong Wan back to the sect to heal her, only to discover that she had been afflicted with the Soul Seal Curse, a sinister Devil Dao restriction long thought lost in the heavenly south. Once forcefully placed upon a target, the curse gradually seals both intellect and spirit. Over time, depending on cultivation, it erodes the soul, entirely turning the victim into a living corpse. It was once considered one of the most vicious methods of dealing with enemies. The old man had been utterly at a loss, terrified by the sight of such a curse. Yet at that critical moment, Nangong Wan awakened on her own. After learning what had been done to her, her face went pale, but she immediately devised a way to save herself. Using a secret technique from her greater incarnation arts, she chose to seal herself within glacial qi. This method completely froze her body while drastically slowing the curse's progression. The result is what you see now, Senior Marshal Brother Cheng said, handing Han Li 2 jade slips, one azure, one crimson. One jade slip was left behind by the black-robed man for Junior Marshal Sister Nangong. The other was left specifically for Junior Marshal Brother Han. Please take a look. Han Li accepted the jade slips with a heavy expression. He examined them briefly, then chose to read the one meant for Nangong Wan first. As his spiritual sense immersed itself into the jade slip, his expression grew complicated worry mixed with unmistakable relief. This reaction stunned Senior Marshal Brother Cheng. The jade slip had actually been left by Nangong Wan for Han Li. It contained a subtle restriction that would reveal whether someone else had read it first. Knowing this, the old man had not dared touch it. Given Han Li's recent rise and terrifying reputation, he could not afford to offend him. After finishing the azure jade slip, Han Li let out a soft sigh and turned to the crimson one. The moment he finished reading it, his expression plunged into icy fury. With a twist of his hands, purple flames surged forth, incinerating both jade slips without leaving even a trace of ash. Senior Marshal Brother Cheng was shocked. Though the jade slips were not extraordinary artifacts, destroying them so thoroughly was no simple feat. This only confirmed the rumors Han Li's true strength far exceeded that of a mid-nascent soul cultivator. The drifting cloud sect had gained a truly formidable pillar. As these thoughts crossed his mind, Han Li spoke coldly. Senior Marshal Brother Cheng, did you see the face of the man who ambushed Nangong Wan? Was he tall? What was his cultivation? He may be someone I know. I did see him, the old man replied immediately. He was quite tall, a young man with an ordinary face. He appeared to be using a concealment technique. I was unable to see through it. However, he must be at mid-nascent soul stage at the very least, given how easily he defeated fellow Taoist Nangong, a youth. Han Li's eyes flickered with surprise. That's right. With his cultivation, he must be like you, having taken some pill or cultivated some art to preserve his appearance. But his true age must be far greater than yours. There are exceedingly few cultivators capable of forming a nascent soul at your age. He hesitated, then continued. Junior martial brother, from the jade slip he left behind. It seems he wants you to bring a magic treasure refined from golden lightning bamboo to the profound heaven mountains. Could he truly be a devil Dao cultivator from the Jin Empire? Do you really possess such a treasure? Han Li's expression hardened. I cannot be certain, but regardless, he has a connection to me. He should be a devil Dao cultivator from the yin-sifting sect of the Jin Empire. I once thought they sought revenge for a sect member I killed, but it seems they desired my golden lightning bamboo treasure all along. Even if I hadn't killed anyone, they would have come for me eventually. Wana was dragged into this because of me. He paused, then said coldly, and yes, I do possess a treasure refined from golden lightning bamboo. The fury on his face faded, replaced by a chilling, murderous calm. That's no surprise, Senior Marshal Brother Chung said gravely. Golden lightning bamboo is legendary for restraining devilish techniques. And since they're from the Jin Empire, they have no need to restrain themselves when dealing with Heavenly South cultivators. How about this? I'll invite several close friends and we'll join forces to hunt him down. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.